Hi, this is Judy with the PQP Stitch Club, and I'd like you to meet Lisa Burman of the Burmann Studios. In our February monthly mini, Lisa's Joyful quilt weaves together Beethoven's iconic symphony and Henry Van Dyke's beloved hymn, unfolding hearts in a joyful embrace. Hi, Lisa. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you all?
We're doing great today. Hey, now, this hymn, this was played at your wedding, right?
It was played at our recessional. So after we were married and we were walking out, this was our recessional hymn.
Oh, I love that song. Well,
I
beautiful. And so all these years later, you've got a quilt with a nod to that.
The anniversary coming up on March 1st. How many years since it's got? I think it's 22.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, so my husband's holding the camera.
Yeah.
I'm not,
Everyone, Scott.
uh,
Well, happy anniversary in advance.
well, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's in a series. I started a series of inspirational song quilts.
Oh,
It
yeah?
It could be a title, it could be lyrics in a song. I think the last one you published was Answer the Call, which was about our son who is going off to pre-seminary.
Mhm. Very good. All right. Okay. Designer notes questions, which we no longer do, but this is kind of a replacement. And I love your quilts. And I had no idea how big that one is till there it is, and behind you.
It's a king size quilt. I
Yeah.
actually, the history on it was I wanted to design a scrappy quilt for my own bed.
Mhm.
And so I started pulling from my stash. I started designing the pattern. I love flowers and I love scrappy. That's why a lot of my patterns are scrappy because I'm uh, trying to deplete my stash, but I just think it grows and grows in the basement. I I'm trying, but I just can't. But we're currently renovating our bedroom, and I bought this beautiful wallpaper. It's like this color, this real
Mhm.
pale teal. So I thought
Mhm.
I'm gonna make a quilt for myself
Yeah.
for our bed.
For a change.
Yeah, and after I got it together, and actually I quilted it, and I thought, you know what? I was gonna put this color binding on it, and I said it needs a red binding. I thought the red was the right way to go.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
then after I pulled out the wallpaper, I said, you know what? No, I'm gonna make a different one because I just don't know that it's gonna go how I thought it would.
Well, that's kind of the surprise element, I think, is part of the fun of art. You never know what you're going to end up with.
Make another one, right?
Make another one, yeah.
Find some.
So, do you teach or do shows or anything?
I do. I do teach. I like to teach either classes at a quilt shop or a seminar.
Hmm.
Going on retreat next week, but I'm not teaching. I'm just busily sewing. Might finish the
Nice.
quilt for their magazine. But yeah, and I'm actually now that it's just Scott and I'm willing to travel. If I
Mhm.
did Virginia once and teach at a guild, I came in and I did a trunk show, and then the next day I taught an all-day applique seminar.
Mhm.
That's actually a really nice class because I teach you a few different ways, but then my favorite way is prepared applique because I don't want the edges to fray ever. I want these quilts to really be heirlooms and last a long time.
Mhm.
Um, and there's some times where raw edge applique works
Mhm.
um, with cotton. Let me preface that. I know wool is raw edge, but
Right.
wool fray like cotton does.
Mhm.
Um, I haven't found a fusible for cotton that I've really loved, but I know that when I turn the edges under, I it's just going to last for years and years. mean, in theory, we can wash this quilt 100 times and these edges are all turned under. They're not gonna come apart or fray.
Did you use a fusible for that?
I did not. So sometimes when I do my applique, depending on the shape, if it's so no, this is all turned and I use a template material and I turn it under with a glue stick. I do use an iron to try and dry things faster. And I put it in place using, I like Roxanne's glue. It's a washable. It washes out. Everything I use washes out. Yeah, that's how I did that one. That's how I do most of them is I turn it.
Okay.
Now, to if I get to a piece, maybe that's it's really small or it's really oddly shaped where I can't turn it with like template plastic, then I may use a stabilizer behind it. I like Wash Away Applique Paper by C&T Publishing. The one thing is it's a little bit stiff. Until you've washed your quilt multiple times, then it softens up. But a lot of times people don't wash their quilts very much.
Right.
So what you could do in that case, and grab something to point with, is if you, let's say you used it on one of these petals, turn your edge on the back of that applique paper, and then you could go back and maybe remove the paper from the middle so that it's just into the edge. It kind of works like freezer paper, except it stays in. But sometimes it's a little stiff. But to get a really nice turned edge where you've got really nice pointy points, really smooth curves, well, then it's worth it if it's a little bit stiff, I think.
Yeah. And like you say, as you wash it, it'll soften up.
It does. It gets softer and softer. There's another product too. So Wash Away Applique Paper by C&T Publishing. It has a glue on one side. So now you've got to be careful about reversing your pattern because you're going to iron it to the back of your fabric. There's another product by Ricky Timms called Ricky Timms Stable Stuff. It has no glue. It's pretty much the same product. So you don't have to reverse your pattern. You would just say you're cutting out, let's say it's a horse. You want your horse to go this way. Well, you cut out your pattern and then you just put the glue on the other side. Does that make sense? So you reverse it, you've glued it down, and then you've turned it. So you could cut it out without reversing it, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
I've used both. They both work great. It's just sometimes I forget. Like I was working on a directional pattern. I traced it out. I cut out the applique paper, and then I realized, uh-oh, I didn't reverse it. I'm like, oh no. So I had to just cut out a new set. But they're not necessarily the least expensive way to go. So
so you could probably have made another quilt with the ones you did wrong, just going in the other direction.
Well, it was a flag.
Oh,
of
course.
To fly away. So okay.
Oh boy. Yeah. Well, what about you were talking about you have a way to trace on a dark background?
Oh, so I actually brought a piece of scrap black fabric up, and I actually printed out part of this pattern.
Okay.
And the reason I brought this up is because when I was reading the pattern, and Deanna does a great job editing my patterns. I keep sending her patterns, and I'm like, this one's good, Deanna, you're going to like it. And then she calls me. I'm like, oh, I duck on it. I'm off again. But no, she's great. So one of the things I did, I came up with this method for myself is I'll take the pattern. Obviously, this is a partial of that big corner. And when I did this one, for me, it's easier to take a pattern and work on just this much of it. So I created the flower, and then I with Roxanne's glue, I glued down the circles, and then I created this as a unit. So when I glued it to the background, it glued on as one big unit because it was already together. And then because it's easier, much easier to sew it, like this is a big corner. So to try and roll that up and get that under your domestic machine to try and do little zigzags, it's easier to sew down these two circles while it was just one unit. And then I ironed the units in place. And then I started sewing down the outlines. But in order to get them in place, we'll come back to this fabric. Here's what I do for dark fabrics. If it's a light fabric, you can lay it on top of your pattern, and then you can come up with either a friction pen or marker and mark your outlines. Dark fabrics, you can't really do that unless you've got a big door wall or window that you can take up to. But here's what I started to do. And I mentioned this to Judy earlier. These are not heirlooms. You can print off as many as you need to do your corners. So what I'll do is to mark this background, I'm going to find my center point, and I'm going to take my stylus. I'm going to make a little bitty hole. And then I'm going to take, this is a white chalk pencil. I'm going to make a center point. There's my little center point. Now, to place this flower, I don't need to come and trace all these lines. All I really need to do is find out where these points are. So I take my stylus and I go out to where the point is, pull it through the paper, and then I come in and I mark these points. So now, and I do all the little points. So now, here's my point. Here's my other point. So now when I lay this unit flower down, I just make sure that all my points line up to these dots all the way around. And then I can, once I got it in place, then what I'll do is I'll flip half of it up and I'll put Roxanne's glue, put it down, flip the other half up, do my Roxanne's glue. So that's how I do it if it's got a pointed petal. But if it has something where it's rounded like this, I'll do the same thing. I'll come through and I'll find my center point and I'll mark it. Pull it back and make sure you can see it. It's right here. Now this one takes a little more surgery. So this flower, remember where I'm going to put it down, it's already complete. These little petals are already stuck on here. So you can come through here and you can kind of tear a little bit of your paper away. Maybe I'll come in here with a little pair of scissors. So now, when I go back to my center point, if I'm going to mark this, I really don't want to mark on this edge, even though it's rock. So I just come in to the inside, peel this back a little bit. And if I can mark all of these petals where they go, then when I come back to lay these flowers down, here's the outside of, here's my center, and here's the outside of my one petal. I would have gone and marked. And so my pattern, when I'm done, these are all have little holes in them. So I get to where that outer petal goes. Then the other thing I like to do when it comes to stems, so we already know the width of our stem because this piece has already been made. This is actually two pieces. So what I'll do, because I know that this intersection is an important point, so I'm going to come in and I'm going to mark that because I know that that corner has to meet there and it has to meet here. And I'll come in and maybe just sketch that. Now, I don't need to sketch all of this outer. What I like to do is I just do the center line. So I'm scoring it with, what is this, a stylus? And then I would probably do this.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm going to come through and I'm just going to poke through the paper with my pencil and do some little center lines. My design history, when I was young, I started out in engineering. My first job when I was 17, I worked at Stellar Engineering as a detailer for the automotive industry. So here's my center line.
Yeah.
So I don't have to trace the whole stem. I just need to know where the center is.
A little guideline.
Little guideline. And then I would do the same thing over here. And then of course I've got my corner of where the stem is.
Mm-hmm.
Because my goal when I mark these backgrounds is to try and do the least amount of marking as I can so that I don't have to try and cover it with my applique.
Mm-hmm.
So that was I worked for different design companies for 9 years, and then I got hired direct to General Motors for 11 years. And then when we had Tim, I quit to stay home.
Yeah.
But then I started quilting and long arming.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So hopefully this is helpful for some other people. Obviously, this is a really big corner, and there's 4 big corners on this.
Mm-hmm.
Like I mentioned before, these are labors of love. There's no hurry. There's no race. Just take your time. I got really fast at turning applique, especially circles.
And do you do the applique by hand?
Oh no, I sewed that down by machine. I like to use invisible polyester thread with a neutral, well, actually in this case, I had a gray in the bobbin, but I turn my tension down so that I don't want my bobbin thread to pop to the top.
Mm-hmm.
My intersection between the invisible and the bobbin thread is below the halfway point. So you've got your fabric, and then your thread locks in between them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my thread is locking closer to the bottom, which is because that's all hidden in the quilt. So the intersection of where these threads lock is where the batting is.
Mm-hmm.
So the applique is not going to come off.
Yeah.
And of course, this one is heavily quilted. So
mm-hmm. I saw that when we had the close up.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
What I did the quilting, and actually she mentions it in the pattern, is this is so printed, you're not even going to see a pantograph on it. If someone brought me this as a customer, I would say, well, here's how you could save some money. Just do a little simple meander in this big area because nothing's going to show up. It's too printed. When it comes to here, outline the applique. I did a meander in the background to kind of match this. You can't see it though.
Mm-hmm.
And then the only really opportunities we had for some fancy quilting was in the center of the medallion. There's a little crosshatch.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you get to the outer border, I did the piano keys.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
And that's it. So the quilting on it is actually it was all hand guided though. Now you got to find a long armor that's A, willing to custom quilt, but B, willing to hand guide.
Uh-huh. Nice job.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
As for the piecing of the medallion, like I mentioned before, Tina and I worked on this together. She pieced a lot of blocks into units, and then I sewed the units together. Yeah, she pieced as many as she could, and then she she brought the project back and she says, I don't think I like you anymore after this one. Like, this one was a lot. I said, yeah, I might have overshot on this one, but so.
And Tina is your sister-in-law?
Yep, she's married to my brother.
Okay. And she likes to sew too, so that's nice.
She does. And I would say in the last, we've been collaborating on quilts for quite a while.
Mhm.
She's another person who's become a really excellent piecer.
Mhm.
So I just did a super adorable design for her daughter's baby. It's more modern. But I did the applique and she does the piecing and then she assembles the top. It's super cute. But
Nice.
we work together on a lot of them.
Mhm.
On a retreat with me. So we
That would
sit
be
together
fun.
and
Yeah.
just plug away.
Mhm. Sounds like you're a good collaborator. You work with other people to create something.
I like helping people. I like the last retreat we were on, there was a gal who wanted to do, I had done a quilt. It was a lot of floating 16 patches.
Mhm.
She loved it. She wanted to do a quilt for her husband. And luckily I had my computer with me and I designed something up really quick for her. And
Mhm.
she picked out her fabric. She started working on it. And it was right before Christmas. And I said, I'm done long arming for the year. I said, but if you get this done before Christmas, I'll quilt it for you. But she didn't get it done. And then she called me and she said her husband didn't like it. I said, well, then I make him a quilt anymore.
Oh,
I know.
oh, that's devastating.
A lot of work. So yeah, I like helping people. I like to teach. I love to teach applique. I love applique because it's just limitless.
Mhm.
Um,
It is.
if you can't, I always say if you can't turn the edge, then you definitely can do it as raw edge.
Okay.
Turn it if I can.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, if any of our viewers would want to learn more, like, to get you to come and teach or to do a demonstration or anything, how can they find you?
Well, I do have well, I call it a website. I think it's a blog post. I don't know. It's burmanstudios.wordpress.com.
Okay.
And
All
I
right.
am on Facebook. And I encourage everybody on Facebook to join the Wool and Cotton Applique page. I started that, I think I started it in like 2014, 2015. And we are over almost to 25,000 people.
Woo, congratulations.
We've got two other admins. There's Teresa she's in Tennessee. She owns Mountain Creek Quilt Shop, Teresa Ayers.
Mhm.
Boy, if you want some beautiful fabric, and they do ship. And her daughter, I think her daughter's a moto rep too. And then my other admin that came in is Missy Carpenter.
Okay. Yeah.
And she's
Very talented.
She's very talented. They're both very talented women.
Mhm.
So it's a great group. I always like to tell designers it's free. You can come on that group page and share what you're working on. You can share your website. I don't charge anything. It's just a page that's open to anybody. Maybe you have a question. We've had people go on there and ask a question, and then there's a ton of answers.
Mhm.
Me or Teresa or Missy catch it right away. I have private messaged people and help them. So it was started to be a very helpful applique group.
Okay. Wool and cotton applique on
Wool
Facebook.
and Cotton Applique on Facebook.
Okay. All
And
right.
I don't know what the banner is right now. Oh, I think it's this quilt. So if you look
Nice.
there and you see this quilt, um,
Then you know you're in the right place. Okay.
in a while I get to put my own. I try and go through every week or two and pull a picture up that someone's posted and
Hmm.
put it on the banner um, just something nice to do.
Yeah. Keep it keep it interesting.
Well, I stick mine up there.
Yeah, I'm glad you did. Thank you
All
so
right.
much, Lisa. I love your quilt. And thank you, everybody, for watching. And I hope you make this quilt and send us pictures.